Well, I actually have a Christmas joke. I'm seeing some Christmas things displayed already, so I thought, well, I think it could be appropriate. Well, actually, it was shortly before Christmas, and the businessman was anxious to get home. And the business trip had been grueling, and he was in a terrible mood. And the airport loudspeakers were blaring Christmas carols he was sick of hearing, and he thought the decorations were tacky, and the worst decoration, he thought, was this plastic mistletoe that was hung over the luggage scale. And being in a grumpy mood, he said to the woman at the counter, "You know, even if I weren't married, I wouldn't kiss you." And the attendant said, "Well, that's not what it's for. It's so you can kiss your luggage goodbye." Yeah, those of us that used to work for the airlines know that is a distinct possibility when you tick off a gate agent. Okay. Well, that's also a consequence of being a complainer, right? So I'm completing our summer series of Wise Words from TV All-Stars today with someone that I just think is a powerhouse. Her name is Iyanla Vanzant. How many of you have heard of Iyanla? Great, of course. Because you talk about someone that's a straight talker, about what happens to us when we complain and when we choose to be a victim about things. And I just want to give you a little bit of history about Iyanla, and then I'm going to play a video for you and then just talk about some of what she teaches. Iyanla Vanzant is a renowned relationship coach, author, TV host, ordained minister, and motivational speaker. And how she got there is quite the journey. She was born as Rhonda Eva Harris in Brooklyn, New York on September 13th, 1953. And in 1983, after she was ordained as a priestess in the Yoruba tradition, which is an indigenous religion practiced by the Yoruba people of Nigeria and Benin, she renamed herself Iyanla, meaning great mother. She was born in the back of a taxi cab to a mom who was a railroad car maid and a father who was frequently arrested for petty crimes and was largely absent from her life. She went to live with relatives in 1957 when her mom died from breast cancer, and one of these paternal relatives raped her when she was only 9 years old. Her first child, Jamia, was born in 1969. She had two other children, Damon in 1974 and Nisa in 1979. She was in an abusive marriage where she was frequently assaulted, and she was finally able to leave him with her children in 1980 at the age of 27. After some time on public assistance, Rhonda enrolled in Medgar Evers College in Brooklyn, and in 1983, just 3 years later after she left her husband, she graduated with a bachelor's in public administration. 3 years later, she graduated from the City University of New York Law School with a Juris Doctor, summa cum laude. She spent 3 years from 1988 to 1992 as a public defender in Philadelphia. Feeling unfulfilled working in legal work, Vanzant started writing books. The first being Tapping the Power Within, A Path to Self-Empowerment for Black Women, which began a series of books designed to teach pre-employment skills to marginalized women. She eventually published 15 books, with 4 of them landing on the New York Times bestseller list. Her sales totaled 8 million copies. Oprah Winfrey heard Iyanla as a radio host and invited her to appear on her show about 20 times between 1998 and 1999. With the confidence gained from these appearances, Iyanla developed a TV program in 2001 that was canceled after 1 season. She blamed Oprah for the program's failure, and the two remained estranged for the next 10 years. Things continued to go downhill for Iyanla as book publishing contracts were canceled, and her husband of 7 years filed for divorce. After her firstborn child, Jamia, passed away to colon cancer on Christmas Day, 2003, at the age of 34, Vanzant fell into bankruptcy, a suicidal depression, and homelessness. This experience inspired another bestseller book, Peace from Broken Pieces, which led to a career revival and a public reconciliation between Iyanla and Oprah on TV in 2011. I watched that. I remember that. Iyanla Vanzant now hosts Iyanla Fix My Life on the Oprah Winfrey TV network. So Iyanla found New Thought when she was in a bookstore in New York City and discovered This Thing Called You by Ernest Holmes when it literally fell off the shelf in front of her. Then she read Spiritual Economics by Eric Butterworth and began attending services at Avery Fisher Hall, where Eric was then speaking. It was through Eric Butterworth that she discovered Unity and Charles Fillmore and many other New Thought teachers. It was a philosophy that made sense to her to the point where she became an ordained New Thought minister. She currently leads Intervision's Institute for Spiritual Development, a New Thought seminary founded previously with her daughter, Jamia. Here she trains spiritual leaders and ordained ministers near her home in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. Wow, has this woman just risen from the phoenix, risen from the ashes? She's an amazing woman. She is so wise and has quite the direct and clear way of communicating with people. I'd like to give you a taste of that, of who she is and how she supports others through the wisdom she shares in that very clear and direct Iyanla Vanzant way. So here's the video of Iyanla.
So it's not selfish to put yourself first.
No, it's self-full.
It's self-full.
It's self-full to be first, to be as good as possible to you, to take care of you, to keep you whole and healthy. That doesn't mean that you disregard everything and everyone, but you want to come with your cup full. You know, my cup runneth over. Yeah. What comes out of the cup is for y'all. What's in the cup is mine. But I got to keep my cup full.
Don't we do that? Don't we take on other people's stuff and make it about us when we don't know that we matter? When you don't know you matter, you will make somebody else's crazy about you. You got your own stuff to handle. You don't have to take on anybody else's.
You know, there isn't a person you can ask in the world at some point where they didn't say, you know, I just find it difficult to trust people.
Right.
But what you say, that's not really the issue.
No.
Learning to trust other people.
No.
The real issue is
Trusting yourself. Trusting yourself that you're going to make the right choices. Trusting yourself that you can hear that voice and follow it. Trusting yourself.
that when people betray you, abandon you, don't acknowledge you, you will.
I'll be okay.
Yeah.
I'll be okay. What about boundaries? People violate you when you don't have clear boundaries because you don't tell them how to behave in your life. And they run amok. They run amok because you don't have clear boundaries.
You know, a lot of people hold secrets about themselves from their family.
Guilt and shame, guilt and shame. And teaching people how to be people, love people, and respect people enough to tell them the truth.
Okay.
Tell them the truth. Respect them. Here's a big story I wish everybody, I'm just a single mom and I can't. That story is not helping you. That may be a reality. Here's the principle. State the facts, speak the truth. Here's the fact. I'm raising children without the benefit of a partner. That's the fact. Here's the truth. Right where I am, the fullness of God is, and me and God is a majority. Most of us have a death urge. And we see the guy coming, warning, slap, right in the middle of his head. And we said, oh, I'ma fix it. I'ma change it. I'ma reshape it. And we gotta understand, love doesn't have to fix you, change it. When you see crazy coming, cross the street. Cross the street.
Don't you love that? When you see crazy coming, cross the street. Just remember that. So obviously this is a very clear and wise woman. Okay, but I want to give you a backstory. I want to go back to what happened between her and Oprah because she uses that as a very powerful teaching point. So, okay, as we stated before, Oprah saw this powerhouse and invited her onto her show. And Iyanla was on the show so much they had her join the Change Your Life faculty that Oprah had created. And what happened from all of this success, Because she was on the stage with master teachers. Her popularity was growing because her wisdom was resonating. And so what happened from all of this was that she got an offer from another network to do a show of her own that was canceled after one season, right? And she blamed Oprah for the program's failure. And again, they were estranged for about a decade. But Iyanla explains that what was happening underneath this situation was what took her to do her inner healing work. And she will tell you, you have got to do your inner healing work. And she said that in the midst of all the success that she was experiencing, she did not get her self-worth. She didn't get it. Here she had written, at that point, 13 books, traveled all over the country, had been on Oprah's show repeatedly, but she still didn't know her own sense of self-worth. She said she was trying to live into a place that wasn't true for her. The outer was great, but her inner knowing of who she truly was wasn't in place. She was living a lie, and eventually, she said she crashed and burned. She said she could have blamed leaving Oprah's show on the external circumstances. And then, of course, this network was offering her a whole lot of money to have her own show. No, she said she couldn't honestly blame it on that. No, it was about her not knowing her own worth. She said she was sabotaging her good because she had been taught she had to work hard for anything she got. Now, can anybody relate to that? The success with Oprah came to her so easily, and she said she messed it up because it didn't fit into her paradigm. Her beliefs about herself and her abilities and how the world works were not in alignment with her success. So she says she didn't know how to receive a gift. She didn't know how to receive a blessing without working so hard for it. And when things came to her easily, she said she blew them up. She invalidated them due to low self-worth and deserving. And so now one of Iyanla's core teachings is that we have to become aware of our stuff, the ways that we sabotage, accept it, and work with it. We have to tell the truth about our stuff. She gives that truth about the stuff that says that we're unworthy, that we're not enough, we're not deserving, we're less than. Otherwise, she goes, we're in denial and we can't move forward. And we'll continue to sabotage ourselves and play smaller than we're capable of playing. We have to learn and claim what we truly are. We have to discover what makes us live less than our truth. And she challenges us to look at and explore what are the beliefs we live by? What are the thoughts and feelings that cause us to sabotage? And that's where our work is. And of course, to many of us, this isn't rocket science in Unity. We talk about, our thoughts and how impactful they are. We have a third principle out of the 5, here in Unity. And that third principle is thoughts held in mind produce after their kind, right? Thoughts that we hold produce our experience of life. How are we doing with that? How are we doing with that practice? We hear it a lot. And so Iyanla wrote a book. Her latest book is called Get Over It, Thought Therapy for Healing the Hard Stuff. And she said, in Get Over It, how important it is to get over our negative thought patterns. And she's not saying get over it as a way to be dismissive or insensitive, but to know that we can shift our stinking thinking and get over ourselves. The nature of our thoughts determines the direction of our lives, folks. The nature of our thoughts determines the direction of our lives. And, this past weekend, we celebrated legend Aretha Franklin and John McCain. And I did not watch the whole 6 hours of Aretha's memorial. I mean, a woman that huge in legacy and light and presence and talent had to have a service that was lengthy. But what comes to mind to me every time I think of Aretha is the evening that she was at the Kennedy Center for the Kennedy Center honorees, and Carole King was one of the honorees. You remember that? And Carole King wrote the song, You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman. And Aretha made it a legacy. And it catches my throat every time I think of it. Of course, Obama, President Obama was up there crying, that Aretha was at the piano, and she was wearing this big fur coat, and she sat at that piano and she owned it. It was so amazing. And I always thought she played that song like a gospel hymn. It was just so incredible. And then I remember the moment that she stands up and she takes the microphone off the mic that was across the piano, and she stands up and she drops her coat, and the audience goes crazy because Aretha is owning it. That's to me, that is such an example of someone that owns their power. And that's what Iyanla is trying to get us to see. That you can't tell me that at some point in Aretha's career that she didn't have fear and she didn't have self-doubt. But she stood in her power and her knowing, and she claimed her greatness. And so Iyanla is trying to get us to claim our greatness. And then, and I watched the whole service yesterday from the Washington Cathedral for John McCain. And I can't always tell you that John McCain and I, we had the same political views always. But I tell you, this man was a true patriot. This man was passionate about his country, his love for country, and his commitment to being respectful and in integrity and reach across the aisle. Love his country more than party. This is a man that stood in his power and his greatness. See, I think we can point to examples in our world of people that are claiming their power. And the thing is, they're ordinary people that have said yes to whatever's theirs to do to express their greatness. And what Iyanla is trying to teach us is that we too can do that. But what it's going to take from us, folks, is to do our inner work and to be aware of the thoughts we're thinking. Do you know that we think 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, but we're only aware of about 700? And so Iyanla wants to encourage us to get conscious and to do the work to look at what's holding us back. Because, a belief is just a thought fueled by emotion. When we repeatedly think a thought, it will eventually become attached to an emotion, and you'll see an image in your mind, and that's what gets stuck in our subconscious, folks, and it needs to be released. And so Iyanla, in this new book, Get Over It, declares a couple of techniques that I thought, that's so unity, it's so great. Prayer and affirmations. Those are two tools that she teaches in this book. And of course, it's affirmative prayer. And we talk about that in Unity, right? Okay, in affirmative prayer, the antithesis of affirmative prayer is when we beg and beseech and plead and supplicate to a God outside of us, right? And so in Unity, what we teach is affirmative prayer, where we affirm the truth, whether we feel it or not. And then when you sit across from a prayer chaplain, they're going to affirm that truth with you, whether you feel it or not. Regardless of the story that you tell them. It doesn't mean they're dismissing you, but in their own beautiful, holy way, they're telling you to get over it. Yeah. And so we get over it when we claim the truth of what we are. And I'm a big fan, as you know, of release statements, which Unity calls denials, because sometimes it's difficult for us to access that truth, that affirmation, because we got some, stuff on it. The analogy I use, the whipped cream on top of poo-poo. I know, it is not pretty. But our stuff isn't pretty, is it? No, it's not. So often, I know that I will need to declare a statement that says, you know what? This is how I'm feeling right now, and I'm going to release the power I'm giving that. That's not the truth of what I am. And instead, I'm going to affirm the truth of my being. I am a whole being, whether I feel like it or not. I am peaceful, whether I feel like it or not. Because guess what, folks? In the realm of the absolute, which is the truth, peace is you. Wholeness is you. Love is you. And so what we do in prayer is to live knowing. That's the purpose of prayer. The purpose of prayer is for us to claim the truth of what we are and to live knowing that truth. And so Iyanla talks about that, and she talks about the power of affirmations, because affirmations are statements of truth. They're already done, and we speak them in the present tense. And so you know all this, don't you? Don't you? Yeah. And she also talks about a technique called EFT. Are you familiar with EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique? It's tapping. Yeah. She's a big fan of tapping, where you tap on the meridians used in acupuncture for over 5,000 years, those energy points, and it frees up the energy stuck there. So if you're not familiar with EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, I invite you to explore that. She's a big fan of Tai Chi. She's a big fan of breath work because she thinks we're negative because we're oxygen deprived. And pausing, what we practiced in meditation. Pausing. How much freer we would be and how much less drama we'd create in our life if we just took a moment to pause before we reacted. And I know that's very difficult for me to do if I'm not in present moment awareness, right? We get knee-jerky. And so Iyanla teaches, do your meditation work, folks. Spend some time in the silence. Practice pausing. And she also recommends, finally, and there are many more things in her book, but she recommends listening to music without lyrics. The example she used is, ain't no sunshine when she's gone. She's like, really? There's always sunshine, whether they're gone or not. And I just remember the one, I can't live if living is without you. Remember that? I'm dating myself. Okay, yeah. Especially if we're in those vulnerable places, don't listen to sucky music like that. Just don't do it. If you're going to listen to music with words, listen to words that affirm the truth of what you are. Listen to New Thought music, positive music, Jim Goldstein music. Respect. Songs that affirm the truth of what you are. I think you get the point. So Iyanla Vanzant is a gift to us. And I invite you to seek her out if this resonates for you. And so this week, let's practice what she's taught us. Let's declare an intention to get conscious and become aware of the thoughts and feelings and beliefs we have, folks, that sabotage ourselves. Let's do our work. And allow people like Aretha and John McCain and other people in our life that we admire to inspire us to be our greatness. Because our greatness, every single person in this room is great. And your greatness just shows up in your unique, beautiful way. It doesn't have to mean that you're a political leader. It doesn't have to mean that you're on the stage holding a microphone singing. It might mean that. But what is it for you? So let's follow Iyanla's teaching of prayer and affirmations to get over it. Explore ways to uplift yourself and create more balance and well-being in your life. And I got to tell you right now, I think most of you know that my mom is very ill right now, and I'm really needing to hold my center. And I downloaded the Calm app. Have you heard of the Calm app? It saved me. You know, I'm a meditator, and I've been meditating for years, but sometimes when I get off center, I need a little bit of guidance. And this woman named Tamara Levitt, I think her name is, her voice is like, and there's the Calm for anxiety, the Calm for stress, 7 days of stress. There are all these beautiful programs. I just highly recommend the Calm app. Walking in nature, it's getting beautiful. It's going to be fall soon. Let nature feed your soul. Just take forward action, folks, to recognize the ways we sabotage our good. Because you know what? We all deserve to experience our greatness because we're all great and we're all worthy and deserving. So let's affirm together. I let go and claim my worth. I get over it, and the way is open for my good to flow. Thank you, Iyanla. And so it is.